Welcome back to another edition of the Scarlet and Gray Report podcast. My name is Colin Gay. I am the managing editor and team writer covering Ohio State for Rivals, and we got a big one today. It almost feels like a holiday today. Happy spring ball to all you Ohio State fans out there. I just got back with our recruiting reporter, Zach Carpenter. We just got back from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to go through to see Ohio State, to watch a couple minutes of their first spring practice of the year, to talk to Ryan Day, to defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, and offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson. There is a lot to talk through, and I think I just wrote a story. It just posted a couple of minutes ago. It'll be up there now with about CJ Stroud, what Ryan Day, what Kevin Wilson had to say about CJ Stroud. So I'm going to actually start elsewhere here, and I'm going to start with Jim Knowles. And we'll get to the kind of the takeaways from practice in the say 30 minutes that we got to see from practice here soon. But really, what stood out to me was Ohio State needs a teacher. And that's what it wanted for its defense. That's what Jim Knowles is providing for this defense. The first question that was asked, he was asked about tackling, and he was asked about how, if it's something that they need to practice, bringing guys to the ground during spring, or is that something that should be limited in over the course of the spring months and when they heading into the fall. And Jim Knowles, he was talking about how players don't have to practice bringing guys down to the ground, instead of teaching proper technique, positioning, and timing. However, and this is the key, this is why I wanted to bring this up, not only was he kind of, very explanatory, kind of explaining it in ways that, we may understand, and then you all may understand as you get the video up and you can watch it here on the Scarlet and Gray Report website. But he was getting up and like physically kind of showing us, what kind of he expects, what he wants to see in terms of technique, and just showcasing what tacklers and defensive players are supposed to do, instead of kind of, doing everything. And like, in terms of like bringing guys to the ground, you don't need to do that. He showed us how. He's a teacher, and he's someone that you want. It's a group of players that, they have high expectations, but they have high expectations just because of Jim Knowles, the guy that's known for kind of turning around defenses from, his days at Duke, his days at Oklahoma State. Like he's the fixer. And we've talked about this before. But you have a guy who, he's known as a teacher. He's a coach, sure, but he wants to learn and kind of mold his defense, teach his defense. Just instead of kind of coaching, he's leading this team, he's teaching them, then being a motivator, and the demand side of coaching comes third for him. That was his coaching philosophy, is the teach, motivate, demand. And I personally asked him. So one of my questions today for him was, one of the things that Jack Sawyer said when we talked to him at the career day last Friday, I asked him, what does it take for a defense to be taught where the players don't have to think, they don't have to, think about kind of where they're at, get in their head, and kind of just remain, just deer in the headlights type thing. And this is what he said. He said, if players make mistakes on Saturday, that those mistakes are on him. He has to have guys who are not thinking. And he made sure he emphasized like the importance of these short interactive meetings that they've had, kind of introducing this new defense that's kind of going to start at the base defense that Ohio State had last year, the 4-2-5 look with the 4 down in front, 2 linebackers and 5 on the defensive backfield. But then he's going to kind of start to bring in these positions and these like techniques in scheme and things like that he had so much success with at Oklahoma State. So that Leo position, it hasn't been installed yet, but he confirmed that it will, calling Ohio State this safety-based defense where it's moving the running backs and the receivers to make sure when they get to the second level, a linebacker or a safety is in the way. This guy is there. He's meant for this job. He's a teacher, he's a motivator, and you can just see that. We only got to talk to him for say 25 minutes, but you could see that just in our interaction with him, just how focused he is and how just intentional he is with, bringing in this new style of defense with the players that were already there. And I think one of the things, every single time that he talked about a player or, regarding, potential, playing time or things like that. He knows there's talent here. He knows that there is the potential of, success and very, very high praise for guys like, Ronnie Hickman and Court Williams. Court Williams was a big guy, and Zach's actually going to write on that. Maybe it'll be up by the time you see this, but he very, very high praise for those two. He had high praise for Steele Chambers, who looks like somebody who he can kind of do his work with. He sees in the defensive line, he sees a group that could be one of the best in the country. And that's all just from day one. He's been working with these guys for the last few months, kind of just in film sessions and things like that. But this is the first day of spring practice, and he did admit that there is a lot of potential here. So, just to see him out there and kind of with his own positions, position coaches, whether it's Perry Eliano or Tim Walton, his own quality control coaches, his own kind of staff. And Ryan Day emphasized again today how important Jim Knowles is to kind of that role of being the head coach of the defense. That is something that he is taking advantage of, his own staff, his own kind of rules and regulations and these things that are kind of being molded into something that could look a little bit different for Ohio State, but it is a process. And I think Jim Knowles realizes it's a process, and it's something that relies on him to make that process successful. So just seeing him in action, seeing him work with the players, seeing him with his linebackers, him and Larry Johnson at one point switched position groups to where Larry Johnson was working with the linebackers, seeing working on rushing from the outside. You saw Steele Chambers and these guys kind of just going through these drills, like rushing drills, like a defensive back or defensive lineman would as a defensive end of some sort. But there's a system there, and it's a system that Jim Knowles knows works, and he knows that it can work here at Ohio State with the players that he was given. So it'll be interesting to see what's next there. And this is only the start again. And he explained that, but there are high expectations here, and the players know that there are high expectations here. So I guess to give you guys kind of an idea of where Ohio State sits now, Ohio State confirmed that there are 11 players that will not be available in the spring. And that list is Ryan Batch, Jacoby Cowan. So actually linebacker Ryan Batch, defensive end Jacoby Cowan, running back Marcus Crowley, defensive back Jansen Dunn, defensive end Tyler Friday, offensive lineman Josh Fryer, linebacker Cade Kaczorski, offensive lineman Harry Miller, safety Lathan Ransom, and tight end / fullback Mitch Rossi, which based on the reaction of whether it was Ryan Day, whether it was Kevin Wilson, the Mitch Rossi one was kind of the bigger one because you have a room that's kind of not established at all outside of Mitch Rossi. And even with Mitch Rossi, there's a lot of question marks. You see Jeremy Ruckert kind of go off into the NFL, becoming one of the top tight ends options in the NFL draft here. But you have a lot of guys that really have not played a lot of snaps, whether it's, Mitch Rossi has played a very important role in the blocking game as a fullback / tight end for Ohio State last year. then it's really not much. G. Scott, who Kevin Wilson said has exceeded 230 pounds. He's getting bigger, but who Kevin Wilson says is kind of more of that, I don't know, like receiving tight end more than Mitch Rossi, who's more of the blocking kind of guy. And then you have, guys like Joe Royer, Bennett Christian, who Kevin Wilson said, battle an ankle injury coming out of winter, will be a full go heading into or after spring break. So after next week, that's position with a lot of questions. And I mean, really, all the other questions regarding Ohio State, you have everything that you saw from the 30 minutes of spring practice that we saw was kind of expected. You had, the running back rotation was Trevion Henderson 1, Mayan Williams 2, Evan Pryor 3, and then you had in the quarterback line, it was CJ Stroud, Kyle McCord, and Devin Brown as the top 3, which, those are both to be expected. You saw Paris Johnson Jr. as the first team left tackle, which Kevin Wilson said is his job right now, and we're gonna see what he can do with it, and which could change, but that's what he was recruited to play at Ohio State, so he's getting that opportunity starting here in the spring. You saw Mitchell Melton. This was a little surprising. Mitchell Melton, the linebacker who was out for the majority of last year, you saw him splitting time between the defensive end position and linebacker position. No knowledge here from me, but for me, that might lean into something if he shows something here in the spring. Could that mean a Leo position? We'll see. That level of hybrid and things like that could make it valuable for Ohio State to find that versatility there, but we will see. No update on, you saw Cade Stover work with the linebackers, but Ryan Day said there really isn't any timetable for Cade in terms of making a decision if he wants to play linebacker or tight end. There seems to be an opportunity at tight end, but that decision will be made later on. Again, this was just the first day of practice, so there's not a lot to happen. Online, you can go through on our site the different number changes and things like that. But really, this is a team that, has a lot of expectations, and you see a lot of change happening. You see, especially on the defensive side. So what does this mean, Colin? What does this set the tone? We're not sure, and I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of things that you would like to see happening. You see Jack Sawyer getting a lot bigger and quicker, and molding into this defensive end that Ohio State has been looking for, that can provide the level of rushing ability that Jim Knowles' defenses in the past have provided. You see Steel Chambers, in his, even from just the intensity that he had in the spring, in the drills that we were able to see, you see this fire, this energy of a guy who, at this time last year, heading into spring ball, he was a running back. And heading into this spring, he has a lot of expectations, especially in Jim Knowles' defense. You see, whether it's Jackson Smith and Jigba, Julian Fleming, these guys that have CJ Stroud, these guys that have a lot riding on this 2022 season. And it seems like something that, Ryan Day isn't shying away from, but again, it's day one. And there's going to be plenty of questions to have. There's going to be plenty of things to talk about. But at this point, really the main story here is Ohio State is off and running here for spring. There's going to be plenty of content here on the Scarlet and Gray Report, so please stay tuned. Plenty of stories from me and Zach, plenty of message board posts kind of dissecting what we saw. We're talking with the running backs and linebackers on Thursday, so stay tuned for video, stay tuned for features. And we're trying to balance all of this out along with a Big Ten tournament run for the men's basketball team. So stay tuned. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. So please keep keep your eyes on our site. Join our family, join the conversation, subscribe to our site, and we will see you guys on the board.